Hello and welcome back to the Bayou, everybody. Welcome back to Hunt Showdown. We are going to be going over 5 more budget loadouts. We did this last time with a spending limit of $200. This time we're going to be doing a budget of about $300, roughly. Some of these might go a little bit over or under that, depending on how you wish to play them. We'll talk about that once we get to each of them. Every one of these builds can actually even be cheaper, depending on if you get equipment from free hunters. Free hunters can have the majority of what I'm going to be sharing on here. They won't have any sort of custom ammo, of course, but you can still always get a free hunter, reroll, and get another free hunter, and at least save some of those weapons if you would like to build some of these loadouts. Let's start out with our very first budget loadout, which is the Romero single shot shotgun, loaded half regular shells and half penny shot. Penny shot is dirt cheap, it's only $5. The Romero is also super cheap at $66 right now, and it is one of the best shotguns in the game in my opinion. It has a very solid one-shot range. It does a lot of damage at range. Penny shot can potentially even have longer range, which is really nice, and penny shot absolutely shreds AI. The only downside is that you don't have pen with it anymore, but that's where you're going to be using the buckshot in this. Of course, if you have extra money, you could always spend this on slugs, but slugs and penny shot can work really well, or slugs and buckshot can also work really well. Buckshot can pen, slugs can pen, and slugs do have a very long one-shot range, which is very, very nice. And then for a secondary, we're going to be taking the conversion pistol. Conversion pistol is also dirt cheap, and it's been a very solid pistol for a very long time in Hunt Showdown. It's got a good range, pretty reliably two-taps people at medium to close range. Fanning is incredible on this, although you don't need fanning to get the most out of the conversion pistol. However, if you can't afford it, you might as well toss it on there if you can. And if you have extra spending money on here, you can also throw on FMJ into your conversion pistol, giving it even longer range, giving it awesome pen. Very scary with fanning then. FMJ plus fanning is terrifying in close range. This whole build is pretty terrifying in close range. And then we're going to throw on some staples for tools and consumables. For tools, I'm going to recommend a knuckle knife and a med kit. I would always recommend some sort of melee tool. A lot of free hunters come with a melee tool of some sort. Knife, knuckles, knuckle knife, heavy knife, whatever it might be, throw that on there. If you don't come with a med kit, always grab a med kit. Med kit is a must-have because you can just heal yourself up. Super useful. And then for consumables, I recommend either 2 vid shots or a regen shot and a vid shot. We're only looking at a total of $211 roughly. Does depend if you want to do like double penny shot. If you're just going one penny shot, you could of course go with no penny shot and save $5 if you want. Throw on FMJ, spend another $50. So you still have plenty of money to work with if your budget is $300. For our second budget build, we're going to be taking the Martini Henry rifle. No special ammo in it this time. The Martini is a very solid weapon. It's got a fast reload. It's got pretty fast follow-up shots. Does amazing damage out at range. The bullet is a little bit slow, so you do have to get used to that. But as long as you're using this at close to medium range, it is a very scary long-range rifle. And if the enemy's missing any sort of bars whatsoever, just body shots can take people out, which is fantastic. We're going to be pairing this with either a New Army revolver, or we're going to be taking a Nagant officer revolver. Both of these are about the same price, and I would highly recommend them with this. You could, of course, switch out the Martini for a Sparks, too. That will be a bit more expensive. This one's already technically over our budget if you have to buy everything for this at $312. Because we are still going to be taking our knuckle knife and our med kit, and then either the 2 vid shots or the vid shot and a regen shot. But if you get a free hunter that comes with any of these, then it's going to be less than that budget. New Army or Officer do have some pretty good ammunitions that you can take. New Army has the bleed ammo, which can be pretty good in close range because it can cause people to panic. It also has FMJ, which makes it so it's extremely slow. The New Army already has extremely slow velocity, but throwing FMG on it makes it even slower. It is really good for penning surfaces, and it does make it more consistent for 2 shots, though. So if you're only planning on using the New Army at close range, or of course, if you plan on tagging somebody with a Martini and then just spamming the New Army at them, FMJ can still work. A lot of the time with FMJ, you're kind of just hoping that the enemies walk into your bullets. But if they do, it hits really hard, unless, of course, you're in buildings where it is pretty scary then. And the Nagant officer can, of course, have high velocity or poison. High velocity is really useful on it, too. Makes it so you can fire at longer ranges more effectively. And if you're good at getting those headshots, can be really effective there, too. For our third build, we're going to be taking the Springfield Marksman. This one is one of the cheapest sniper options in the entire game. It only costs you $73, which is extremely cheap. It's got the Marksman scope, which in my opinion is probably the best scope in the game. Sniper scope can be pretty cool too, but I think I like the Marksman scopes a little bit more. And the Springfield is surprisingly accurate when hip fired, even with the scope on it. Especially if you crouch down, you can still hit people at medium range pretty effectively with the Springfield. The scope on it allows you to snipe, and the Springfield has still plenty of range to be one-shot headshotting people with this. We aren't going to be taking any special ammo, although you could with this one. And then for a secondary, we're going to be taking the Scotfield. Scotfield revolver is pretty good, and it's very common to find on free hunters. For this, you could honestly take any version of the Scotfield you'd like. The regular Scotfield is going to be the cheapest, but you could go with the Scotfield Brawler if you want to not take a melee weapon, and especially if you wanted to take traps or something with this, you could do that and then just punch stuff. That kind of works. I don't usually use that one too much, but it could work. I usually take this with a Scotfield Spitfire, which is very effective. It very reliably 2-taps at almost any range. It's surprising how long a range the Scotfield Spitfire has. It is a very good gun, and it's really cool that free hunters can come with it. It has fast follow-up shots. You can take fanning with it. Fanning with the Scotfield is okay, I would say, overall. If you want to take any of them, I'd probably go with the Scotfield Swift with fanning. That way you can reload it faster. You can, of course, throw different ammunitions into this too, whether it be incendiary or FMJ. FMJ on the Spitfire is very devastating at close range. Honestly, it's pretty devastating at long range too. If you can hit, the bolt's going to be moving slow, but it's pretty effective. This build is going to cost you $230. It can be higher than that though if you want to throw FMJ on this, if you want to go with the Spitfire, or if you want to go with Bleed. All of those are really good options, or a combination of them. For our fourth build, we're once again going to be running another sniper build, sort of. This is the Winnie Marksman that we're going to be taking as our primary weapon, and we're going to be loading it with high velocity. High velocity Winnie Marksman does not cost very much. It costs you about $100 in total, and it has very high velocity, making it so you don't need to lead shots very much. Once again, it does come with the marksman scope, which is great. Unfortunately, this is compact ammo though, so at longer ranges, this is not going to do very much if you're not hitting headshots. It's going to do very little with body shots. And at close range, the Winnie Marksman is not really the best. Even once you have levering with it, you can still make it work at close and medium range though if you need it to, but it's going to be a little bit less than ideal. You'll of course want the Marksman Scopesmith though too. That way you can continually fire follow-up shots with this. And then for a secondary weapon, we're going to be keeping this simple, and we're just going to be taking a Nagant. Just a standard regular Nagant. It is the cheapest handgun in the game. The main reason why we're going to be taking this is because we can also load high velocity onto this. That will give us more of an ammo pool for the Winnie, and that's really the only reason it's here. The Nagant is not really a great handgun overall. If you have fanning, then it is, and it does have pretty clean iron sights, so if you can hit headshots, it's pretty effective there. But you don't want to be using this in a gunfight without something like fanning at close range, because the rate of fire is just too slow on it. You're probably going to get outshot by most other weapons. Of course, you could take other versions of the Nagant, assuming you get them. Something like a silent Nagant with high velocity could also work into this. That way you could be a little bit more sneaky with this. That works. Or you could, of course, pair this with a Nagant officer, assuming you're okay with spending that extra money on it and then extra high velocity rounds. That will make it more effective without any sort of perk, and it will make it pretty effective at close and medium range. And then once again, we're taking the usuals. So knuckle knife, medkit, 2 vid shots, or vid shot and regen shot. This whole loadout is going to cost you $285. Assuming that, once again, you're not going with a Nagant officer. If you're going with that, it's going to cost you a whole lot more. And then for our fifth and final build, we have a bit of a weird one here. We're going to be running the hunting bow as our primary weapon. The hunting bow is a very, very fun weapon, and it can one-shot people at close and medium range. It's also a silent weapon, so you can run around the map really quickly. We're not going to be taking any special arrows with it, although you could if you would like. The poison arrows can be pretty good, you just don't get very many of them. Frag arrows are expensive, but very fun to use, and concertina arrows can be pretty useful too, but a little bit weird to get used to once you start using them. Then as a secondary weapon, sort of, we're going to be taking dual conversion pistols. The dual conversion pistols are probably one of the most consistent dual-wielding weapons. I find them and like the packs to be probably the most consistent of the pistols whenever I do wield them. They can shoot pretty fast, and they are actually pretty reliable at close and medium range. Out to longer ranges, not as much. You can, of course, throw FMJ into this too and make them very scary at close and medium range because you can just fire through walls at people. And the FMJ makes it very consistent for 2-shot body shots too. So that will be a bit stronger, but that is going to cost you an extra $50, and that will technically go over our limit by like $2. Aside from that, the standard usual stuff. So we're going to be taking medkit, knuckle knife, and then 2 vid shots or a vid shot and a regen shot. You're going to want to use the hunting bow to your advantage whenever you can sneak up on people, because hitting somebody with a hunting bow generally causes them to panic, and it will cause them to bleed. And if you have poison arrows in this too, it will also poison them, which is really scary. And then you're going to want to use your conversion pistols at also close to medium range. This build in particular does not do very well at very long ranges. Even though the bow can be surprisingly accurate at long ranges, its damage drop-off is a bit high there. You don't really need any perks for this build either, but you could go with some of them. Ambidextrous really helps for just reloading conversion pistols faster, and something like 100 Hands can help the bow a little bit more. You could also go with Dew Claw if you want to stab with the bow. and that might make it so you don't need to take a melee weapon. You could take traps then too if you want. And those are 5 more very budget-friendly loadouts. So if you're having trouble making money in Hunt Showdown, try out some of these, see how they go. Of course, always try to take your free hunters in when you can, or re-roll them so you can always get them. And then even if you're not using them, be sure to store their free equipment, because some of their equipment is really good. Thank you guys so very much for watching this. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.